So, dear participants, good afternoon to all. I welcome you all for the third session of second day of ATAL FTP program. The session is going to be handled by Dr. P.D. Radhika Madam. So, Radhika Madam has PhD in networking from Anna University, Chennai, and postgraduate in communication systems from PSG College of Technology. She has 10 years of experience in teaching and 2 years in industry. She is currently working as an assistant professor at the Department of Robotics and Automation Engineering, PSG College of Technology. Her research interest includes computer vision, wireless networks, and signal processing. Her research areas are wireless sensor networks, cognitive radio, communication networks, and computer vision. Welcome you, ma'am. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Radhika, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start my session with a thanking note to Sri Ishwar College of Engineering and the management of PSG College of Technology, the principal, and also our beloved HOD sir, who have given this opportunity to me and make me what I am today. And I have been into robotics and automation engineering department just 2 years back. I'm still, I don't call myself an expert, but still we have enough project experiences, and we are every day we are learning something new in our college. So what we are learning, we are just trying to share with you, professors and faculty from other engineering colleges, so that it would make a difference in the life of the students. So thank you all for joining here. And this session, basically, I have prepared in a way like I'm just starting from the basics. I don't know what is the background of the professors here. So I have prepared it in such a way that even though if you are from a mechanical engineering background or automobile or some other non-circuit related branches also, you'll be able to follow at least something from this session. And this session, I would like to promise that this session will give you a kickstart for learning OpenCV or a computer vision related software. So I'm just giving you the basic ideas of computer vision. If someone is already known, if you are working in the field of computer vision, this may seem to be very basic. You can very well discuss with us later or during the session. We can take it up in such a way that it is useful to everyone. With that, I would like to present my screen, and I switch off my camera. Is my screen visible?
Yes, madam. It is visible now.
Okay, so is my voice clear? Is there any disturbance from my end?
No, ma'am. It is clear, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so the session is on computer vision for robotics. So let us start with what is vision, and then go on to what is computer vision, and then go on with what are the technologies behind and what is the area of research going on, applications, and other higher concepts. So why is vision important? All of us know any human being, we are given 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. But out of all the 5 senses, sight plays a major role. Like the neurons devoted to each sense is given in the slide. Like it is like 30% for the sight, and for touch it is 8%, and for hearing it is just 2%, and smell less than 1%. So if you study various sensors available in the world today for different applications, most of them are inclined towards any of these. If it is a biomimicking sensor, like if you are trying to biomimic some component out of it, we'll be using some sensors related to these areas. So again, sight plays a major role. About 30% of the brain's neurons are devoted for sight, and overall 60% of the brain is involved in with vision in some way or the other. That is why vision is more important. So how is this vision working, like how is the image forms in the eye? Why is it important for a human? So if you do some job with your eyes open, it is easier. If you close your eyes and do the same thing, even though you have done the same job so many number of times, you will feel it is very difficult. So that is the importance of vision. So learning something with the help of the eye is more effective. So how is this image formed in the eye? We have learnt in our school days, like the image formation, this physics classes or biology classes, they've taught you what is the structure of a human eye, what are the parts related in forming the image. So that is what is given in this slide. So we are just trying to represent an object. So when light falls on object, it gets reflected back, and it is propagating in all the directions. When it gets focused by our lens present in the eye, we get an image formed. So that falls on the retina. So the same concept is getting biomimicked, and that is how images are formed in our human eye also. Okay, so that is the basic behind computer vision. So we are trying to mimic the image formation in terms of in terms of robots. So what is a human eye for the human is a camera for the robot. So that way, if we compare and learn, we will be able to achieve more clarity with the help of the topics discussed overall. So what is an image basically? What is available in this world? Most of the things, they are analog in nature. We all know any sensor which senses some parameter, it is basically analog, and we are trying to convert it into digital, and then we are processing it. It has its own advantages and disadvantages. So maybe some places analog signals play a major role. So the same way how we process our signals, here we process our images. So how these images are formed basically, when a light forms on an object, it gets reflected. The most of you would have studied about a pinhole camera. So the image, the virtual image is getting projected on a plane or a or like our retina on a screen. The image is inverted, and we are trying to get the real image. So what is basically formed is nothing but this visible light spectrum which is available to us. So this two-dimensional representation of this visible light spectrum which got reflected from an object is converted into some matrix format. That is two-dimensional representation is this one. So if we come across this two-dimensional representation, if I talk about images, formation of images in general, we can have three types of images. One is binary image, and then gray image, and color image. So what is basically binary image is whatever visible light spectrum we are getting, we are just converting it into zeros and ones. Okay, so we just have only two gray levels. So what is done here is the light spectrum is coded from 0 to 255. Why these 255 levels? That is why these many levels? Why just 256 levels are taken? Anybody? We are representing this light spectrum in 256 levels. Why this 256 levels is we are using 8 bits coding. Okay, so if we are converting this value into an 8-bit value. So when this comes, we can represent 256 levels. Out of this 256 levels, I just divide that into 2, so that if it is below some level, I mark it as 0. If it is above some level, I mark it as 1. So that becomes your binary image. So a binary image will basically have a white and black color. And if I want more level, little more depth of the image, more clarity of the image, I can use multiple gray levels. So with a two-dimensional representation like this. So if I start giving some values ranging from 0 to 255 for each gray level, then I will be able to get a gray level image. And that would be like this. So this has different gray levels. So what is present here is your binary image. This is your grayscale image where you have white taking this value 255 and black taking this value 0. In between you have many values. The same thing, if you want to have a multi-dimensional array, 3-dimensional channel, 3 channels are present. I have 1 channel here. If I replace it by 3 channels and I split this gray level into RGB channels, whatever image is here, I take just the red part of it, I produce an array. I take the green part of it, I produce an array. I take the blue part of it, I produce an array. So that I get 3 arrays. So if I represent each of these values by 3 values, combination of these 3 values, then I get a colored image. So each such point in an image formation, we call it as a pixel. Okay. So the pixel is nothing but a representation of a finite set of digital value. The array which I form, each point I call it as a pixel. For a grayscale image, it is just 1 value. For a color image, it has 3 values. Okay, what are the 3 values? They are R, G, and B. So this way, I am able to form an image which is constituted by number of pixels. So if I want more clarity, if I want a clear image, then I have to increase this number of pixels, and that is what we call resolution. Yes, we would have known about our televisions, what we are using every day. In earlier days, it was just a monochrome television. We had only a gray screen. And from that, we developed to a color or a Eastern color television. And then we came to a color television or a VGA channel where we have a resolution of 640 by 480. And from VGA, we achieved a high definition resolution, that is 1280 by 720. So this is mostly used in our computer screens. And nowadays, we are using full HD. Most of the mobile screens will be using 1920 by 1080. And 4K televisions or screens are available in the market today. So its resolution comes around 3840 by 1260. So this is nothing but the number of pixels, the number of rows and columns in this matrix. So the number of pixels is if you multiply this, you will get, it is going on increasing. But still, we are not increasing this level. 0 to 255 is maintained. Why? Because instead of giving 1 gray level, these many 256 gray levels, if I increase it to some 620 gray levels, I get more clarity, right? More number of colors, a very colorful image. But we are not going for that. Why? It's because our human eye can perceive only this many colors. If you go beyond that, it will be more clear, more colorful, more precise, but still our eye cannot perceive that. So what is the use of going for such a clarity? There is no requirement. So the same way, you have different color spaces available. Like if it is a printing application, we follow a certain color space. If it is a presenting on a monitor, LCD monitor, we use certain color space. So like that, for any application, we can choose different color spaces, and we can combine these RGB values into different other values. We can form CMY, HSV. So those color spaces will have different color combinations on which we work on, so that our human eye perceive a better picture clarity. So this is how an image is presented to us. So it is formed by this method. So this is the representation of the what we were looking into for last 10 minutes. Right? If you have a picture of a baby, if you just have a binary image, that is a 0 and 1, if you just have 2 levels of gray, that is black and white, it will be like this. If we increase the number of levels to 6 gray levels, you will have a picture like this. If I have 16 levels, picture may look like this. And if I apply filters for R, G, and B values, I'll get a more clear picture. And if we come to computer vision projects, the technology we use, most of the softwares talk about matrix of, or the number of the matrix which consists of these pixel values or the RGB values, and it starts from 0, 0, and it increases in the y-axis downwards and increases in the x-axis in the right hand side. So this will be your x and y coordinates. Normally we'll draw like this, but it is not like this here. It is the opposite y here. So if I talk about a 0, 0 coordinate of a picture, this is it. The top leftmost corner will be my first pixel value. So that is how we have to process the images. This is important when we are working on the image. This we should never forget. So how human vision and computer vision are related? So a human can look into some object. They can find out what object it is by processing it through the brain, and we interpret the object and we give the output. The same way, the computer is able to sense the objects. So we give the input as the picture of the object here, and that is given to a sensing device. There are a lot many sensing devices. We will discuss it later on. So this sensing device will give the input to the interpreting device, like a computer or a microprocessor or a microcontroller, where the decision is made and you will get the output. This seems to be very simple problem. It's like finding out whether it is an apple or orange or a banana. It's very simple task for a human, but for a computer to learn this, it is a Herculean task. That is the only difference between a human vision and the computer vision. We have to train this interpreting device aggressively so that it can differentiate between an apple, an orange, and a lemon or a banana. So a lemon and orange can look the same for a computer. For us, we can identify from the size just by looking at the size and the shape. We'll be able to interpret it very clearly, easily. But for the computer, this is not a simple task. So that is why computer vision is developing day by day. It is so if we look at the history of this computer vision, this is the history. Like, it started, first digital image scanner was invented in 1959. So this is the time when they got a grid. The scanned image was split into grids of numbers. So this is how the matrix concept evolved. So the basic of a digital image. And then Larry Roberts in 1963, he is the father of the computer vision. He processed a 3D information from the 2D photograph. And today, this is the heart of computer vision, I can say, the hot topic in computer vision, where we are able to produce three-dimensional animations, augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality. All concepts are going on with this base. Then in 1966, Marvin Minsky, he tried to connect the camera to a computer. Why is it important? Because as we saw in the earlier slide, the sensing device has to be connected to the computer, like the interpreting device. And Minsky thought, like, how a human is able to see with the help of the eye and processing by the brain. Same way, he thought, like, why not connect a camera to the computer? Before that, it was not possible. The ports were not available. The processing the images was not available. So connecting the camera to a computer is just a child's play today. You just plug and play, and the camera gets activated and we are able to take the pictures. But in 1966, that itself was a PhD research. And in 1980, Kunihiko Fukushima, he built the neocognition, that is convolutional neural networks. And this is the CNN or deep learning, machine learning, AI concepts evolving today. This is the base. In 1980, he built this neocognition machine. And multiple recording devices were introduced for video surveillance, mainly for ATM machines in 1991 to 93, where they built some cameras and they recorded the video and tried to process, get some output out of those videos recorded. So this is a basic history of the computer vision or the milestones, important milestones in computer vision team. So apart from this, how it evolved from basic digital image processing concepts. We all know digital image processing evolved by from signal processing concepts. So signal processing algorithms applied to the image gave birth to image processing. And from that, the combination of these two gave rise to computer vision, and the optics concepts from physics and signal processing were applied to computer vision earlier stages. And then machine learning concepts were also applied in a later stage. When machine learning concepts were applied, computer vision was started to be used in robot vision. Robot vision or machine vision, both are same. Only thing is this is mainly with respect to automation, industrial automation, and this is mainly for the robotics industry. Other than that, so the machine learning concepts are also applied to these two areas today. So what is the major difference in these areas? If we talk about the difference in these areas, as far as image processing is concerned, what we are processing as input is image. So what is basically computer vision? We are trying to process an image or a video from which we are trying to interpret something, get some information. So in earlier days, the image processing was done to process an image and get the image as output. Why is it done? Just to enhance this input. Just to enhance the input, we applied image processing concept. Say increasing the darkness, brightness, sharpening, increasing the contrast, or filtering, smoothing. So those things were applied in the image processing. And after that, they started to get some features out of the output image or some information from the output image after applying computer vision techniques. We will look into this part in the coming slide. And then when this concept was applied to machines, it was called machine vision, where the machine is able to come to a conclusion based on the information obtained from the processed image. Then it was applied to robotic vision industry, where a physical action will be the output. Say a robot finds out there is an object in the in a 3-meter distance. It tries to go. It goes there and picks up the object, or it tries to avoid the object and go around it, like that. A physical action was the output of the robot vision. So what is basically processed is images. Why not videos here? Again, videos are nothing but frames of different frames continuously stitched together. So images stitched together will be processed one by one, can be called as a video. So that is what happens in internally in computer vision also. Even though we feed a video to the interpreting machine, it will process it as frames. By coding also, we will be able to understand that this process is same. So what is basically taken in as input is the image. So this is the evolution of robot vision. What is the starting point of this computer vision is always the digital image processing concept. So this is the digital image processing concept, where you have stored programs and algorithms applied on to an input image, and what you get from the output is an altered image or a report that is based on the image analysis. If we talk about the application areas of the digital image processing, these are different areas. So in these examples, you can see here there is a object character recognition, or reading the texts, or finding out where the texts are in the picture, and here it is counting the objects. Here it is photo stitching, where different photos are taken and it is continuously stitched, and this is object detection or tracking, and then this is morphing. So these are different applications of digital image processing, which is basically done to improve the pictorial information. Why is it done? It would ease the effect of the human interpretation. So human should be able to get some enhanced some output out of the enhanced image. That is the main objective behind digital image processing. Then slowly digital image processing evolved into computer vision, where we have 3 levels of processing. Where in the low level processing, it is more or less similar to your digital image processing concept. Here we just do noise removal, image sharpening, etc. So this is basically done as a pre-processing nowadays, pre-processing technique nowadays, to get a better input to the computer vision algorithm. And in the middle level process, we try to recognize an object, detect an object, segment an object out of a picture. So these are the middle level processes. Here your input is an image, your output will be an attribute out of the image. And these attributes are fed to the high level processes as input. And based on those attributes, the interpreting machine understands something and comes to a conclusion. So we can call examples like machine vision or robotic vision for this, where you have a better understanding of the scene and autonomous navigation or applications of the high level processing. So most of the image processing concepts will fall under this category, and the computer vision will start from here to here. So this is about the computer vision introduction. So what is computer vision? Computer vision is a field of artificial intelligence that trains computers to interpret and understand the visual world. And using digital images from the cameras and videos, deep learning models are applied to analyze the image and get we are able to get some information or come to a conclusion, and then we perform certain actions by reacting to what we see from the images. So what are the 3 important steps in computer vision? Acquiring the image, analyzing the image, and applying the insights to the image to get a new understanding. So what are the basic techniques followed in computer vision? Any computer vision machine or any computer vision project we undergo, it will have these steps, like to capture the image, that is your sensing device. For example, a camera. So image capturing is done by a camera, and then it is sampled, converted into digital, and then frame grabbing is done to get the intensity values. So this is one of the examples. So we have a photo like this. So it is divided into pixels, and we give some specific values to these gray levels. So it ranges from 0 to 255. So this is a gray image, and what we get out of this is just a matrix of numbers. Even in OpenCV, we have OpenCV is one of the softwares used for computer vision. We have the MAT class, which will define the objects of in this manner. So this is what we will deal with in your OpenCV. When we talk about this, we'll discuss more. So these are nothing but the numbers are nothing but the gray level values or the intensity values. So we have to operate on these values to come to a conclusion. Whatever is the algorithm used, whatever is the technique used, whether you are applying a machine learning algorithm or you are applying a sampling or a filtering technique, whatever it is, these are going to be the inputs. So what are the some of the techniques used is like pre-processing, masking, averaging, filtering. Whatever is done in your digital signal processing, the same things are applied to the images here. So same way, masking operation is done, averaging is done, filtering is done. So that I'm not going into deep. There is one more thing called thresholding. We'll see a practical implementation of this also. Thresholding is also nothing but you take a certain gray level. If that gray level, and compare it with a particular pixel value, if that pixel value intensity value is greater than whatever threshold you have fixed, then you will make that part as 1, and if it is less than the gray level value you have fixed as t, then you mark it as 0, so that what you get out of this thresholding is a binary image. This is one type of thresholding. There are lot many types of thresholding available. This is binary thresholding, where you take each and every pixel value from the input image. Say here we have our input image value is 10 and your threshold value is 15. You have fixed your t as 15. Then if when comparing, your 10 is less than 15, so you will assign a value of 0. If you take 20, your 20 is greater than 15, so you will assign a value of 1. So after applying this thresholding, this will become 0 and this will become 1 and this will also become 1. So what we get out of thresholding here is an array of zeros and ones. And edge detection again is an important part of computer vision, basics of computer vision, and one of the most widely used techniques is canny edge detection, where you fix a value trying to detect the edges by studying the gradients. What is applied in all these, like in digital signal processing, what is applied in all these computer vision techniques is nothing but our same mathematics. So if we talk about the variation of in x and y directions, that is finding out the gradients in x and y directions, we are able to come to a conclusion whether, and find out whether there is an edge present in the picture or not. That is, that edge is nothing but value, a contrast or the intensity value is varying with more standard deviation is high or variance is high, so that there is an edge present. If you look at this part, there is no edge here because all the intensity values here is the same. But if you look at this area to this area, you can see there is a intensity value difference. So the variance is very high. So we call this as a edge. So that is how we get a line here. So this is the edge detection. If you take this part, there is no line here. So this is the practical meaning of edge detection. So canny edge detection is one of the methods applied to perform this operation. So based on this, this is again a pre-processing technique today. In today's world, this is widely used as a pre-processing technique for various other applications, where you take this as output and feed it to the another algorithm, which processes and gets some attributes out of that. And object identification is again another important field, where we are trying to find out whether it is an apple or a banana or a cat or a dog or a lion or a cow. So to identify different objects. Say if you are designing a pick and place robot. I'm talking about an application of computer vision in the robotic industry. So if you're talking about a pick and place robot, the robot has to identify a particular component and then pick it. So how to identify the component is by object identification. So object identification again has a number of techniques, like we talk about the packages available in OpenCV. You can just deploy them and you can identify objects. Even hair cascade is one such object. You can identify person, bicycle, car, or eye detection, or you can identify various like SSDNet and YOLO. You can identify different objects. Whatever objects you want to train the model to, you can train the object and you can find out the objects. So identifying the object is different from detecting the object. Detecting the object just tells you whether there is some object or not, but identifying the object will tell what object it is. So basically there is object recognition or object identification, object detection. There are various terms involved. So this what is behind this object detection is your chain code and signature, where we talk about the variation of objects intensity levels in all these directions. So if you just take the 4 levels, you come across a chain code like this, and if you take 8 directions, you come across a chain code like this. So this is again a mathematics part. That is the algorithm behind the object identification. So if you want to talk about these computer vision applications, there are many applications we can quote. I have given only a few here, and let us discuss this in the later part of the class so that we'll have a clear idea. So this computer vision, when applied to machines, it has given rise to the machine vision. So what is basically machine vision is use of computer vision in a industry or a practical application process where it is necessary to execute certain function. And this machine vision is important for any industrial automation, since your FTP topic is regarding the industry automation. So this is the major part we have to cover about. Okay. So what is machine vision? What is a machine vision system? This is the machine vision system, a basic machine vision system, but this has all the components. This is a factory setup. You can see a robot or manipulator here. It is going to maybe this is a bottle which is running in this conveyor belt, where this robot is trying to paste the barcode label, or it is trying to identify what kind of bottle it is, or it can see whether a cap is present or not. So though so many applications are possible in such a setup. So let us take an application where this robot manipulator is trying to find out if there is a label present in the bottle or not. So there is a bottle which has a label present, and there is a bottle which does not have the label. So what does this setup do? If the bottle has the label, it will leave the bottle to move further in the conveyor. If there is no sticker here, the label here, barcode label here, either it has to stick the label or it has to push the bottle out of the conveyor into another portion where it will go back and get the label stuck and then come back again in the same conveyor for inspection. So what is this robot manipulator doing is just the inspection job. So how is it possible with the help of computer vision? So what are the important components involved in this machine vision system? These are the components. Excuse me. So the main component is your camera, and then comes the lighting, and then comes the lens used, a frame grabber, and a computer software, and a hardware part of the computer. So both involved, which has this interpreting, which is nothing but the interpreting machine which we saw earlier, and then an actuator on a output component or a robotic arm in this setup. What setup we are looking into? It is a robotic arm. And the setup given here, you can see there is a camera which is present above the bottle which is moving in the conveyor. So when this bottle comes to this position, there is a IR sensor here. So this sensor will actuate this camera to take a picture. So when this camera takes a picture, that image is fed as input to this vision PC. That is vision enabled PC. So what is this? This is nothing but the interpreting machine. So this PC will come to a conclusion based on the picture taken by this camera, and that conclusion will be given to the controller PC, which is going to actuate a PLC component, where this will actuate this ejector to push the bottle away from the conveyor. Okay, so what is happening here is it is moving from this direction to this direction. So when the cans are moving, let us say the label is misplaced, or there is no label, or the cap is missing or something, this vision PC is able to find out, and now that is giving the control to the controller PC, and that will actuate the PLC component here, which ejects the defective component from the conveyor. So this will not reach the packaging end. So this is just an example, and the important thing to be noted here is the ring light arrangement. Why there is a particular ring light arrangement here is this camera is capturing the image from the top view, and it requires a lighting setup like this. In any industrial application, the lighting setup is customized for that problem. Let us take a pick and place robot. Again, that will have a lighting arrangement for which shows clearly what component it is. When the robot is trying to capture the image should be very clear. Only if the image is clear, 50% of the problem is solved by itself. If you give this vision PC one poorly lit image, then the decision made by this vision PC may not be 100% correct. But in this setup, we are trying to eliminate such errors. So otherwise, if we have a very poorly lit image or a dim, dull image, we need to do more pre-processing. That is again a problem. If you do more pre-processing, it takes more time. So what is important here is again the timing. So when the bottle comes from this position to this position, maybe it takes to uh, uh, 20 seconds to 30 seconds. By that time, this image should be captured, it should be processed here, and then the conclusion should be given here, and the controller should be actuated here. Everything happens in such a short span. So if we are trying to do more pre-processing here, it may take 10 more seconds. By the time that bottle will pass over this area and the next bottle gets pushed off. So that is again an error. There are many applications, time constraint, real-time system where your time deadline is very important. If you talk about another application where the rice bags get filled up, right? So when the rice is falling from the container into the sack below, there will be a camera set up over here. They will be trying to capture the grains, like the color of the grain. If there is any black color grain, rice grain, that will be blowed away from the sack. So maybe along with that black grain, some 10 or 15 white rice also may come out, but they make sure that this black one gets blown away. So that is how fast the system is. When the rice is falling from the container into the sack, how long will it take? It may take around 1 or 2 seconds. So it works in microseconds level to do the necessary action. So that is again another application of a machine vision system. So what is important? How is it operating? I was explaining. So it acquires the digital image from the sensor, then it pre-processes the image, analyzes the image, and collects the measurements needed and features needed. These are all hard coded, like customized for our application. We have to write the coding for this part only. Most of the coding part is concerned with this area, analyzing and collecting the measurement, and then establishing the result. So pre-processing can be common for many applications. Acquiring the image and pre-processing may be common for many applications, but these things are specific to an application. So what are the components important? Like I said, lighting component, staging component, and then lenses and cameras. Different types of lenses have to be used, different types of cameras have to be used, staging sensors have to be used, and lighting setup. You can see many variety of lights here, different shapes and different lengths and different color lighting are also possible. In industrial lighting setup itself is a different project area. So by using these components, we can come into machine vision applications. What are the different machine vision applications? I have mentioned only a few. So positioning the PCB elements, like a robo can automatically place IC on a PCB board. So that is one example of a positioning. So precise positioning is possible with the help of this computer vision technique or machine vision technique. You can verify if a part manufactured is faulty or it is good enough for deployment or production. So how is it done? Is by measuring this. Say this is a wheel, gear wheel, where you are looking for if there is any faulty gear tooth. So like this, they can measure the shape and length and breadth of the components manufactured. They can measure the different distance from here to here, here to here. Any precise measurement is possible for any component manufactured, and that too, it is done at the speed of the component being manufactured. Like when the component is manufactured, it goes on the conveyor into the next stage. Meanwhile, it is also inspected, and the quality checking is done whether it can go ahead with the second stage or not. It is decided on the conveyor itself. If the component is faulty, again it is rejected at that place itself. It will not go for the next stage of processing. And another important one is the barcode reading or QR code reading part, or the imprinted any of the component, any of the material. It can be a plastic bottle, it can be a steel bottle, it can be a iron rod, it can be a paper, whatever is the material. If we take a picture of this, we are able to read the code or the engraved letters. So the objects, you can clearly read and process this what is engraved on this component. Like we are able to derive or extract the text from here. Object character recognition சொல்லுவாங்க. Like OCR techniques, employing this technique, we are able to get the information out of this, and we will be able to process it further. Say you just want to make sure whether the batch number of batch of production is correctly printed, whether a particular code, QR code, is properly aligned, on what component. You can come to a conclusion based on the number etched on this, what component it is, where, who is the manufacturer, where is it coming from. So those details can be stored into our database based on this these characters which are pasted, etched on the metal part. And also it is easy to analyze the circular prints also, not only the straight prints. Any way it is printed, it can be processed. Another important thing is like the earlier application, we took the top view of this bottle, right? So when we take the top view of this bottle, we will be getting, say this is eye drop bottle, where we have pasted the label on the side wall of the bottle, and we capture a picture of this from the top view, so it will look like this. Okay, by applying the computer vision techniques, we can make it straight, and we can get all the information from this picture captured. So this is a simple task for the computer, but not for a human. So if I am asked to read this picture, I will not be able to interpret it correctly, but a computer does it easily. So that is where a human fails, but a computer hacks. So another thing to be noted is, if a human is able to process only the visible spectrum, computer can process more larger spectrum. That it can process ultraviolet, infrared. So the broader spectrum of light is processed by computer based on the vision technique, but our human eye is capable of processing only the visible spectrum. Another important application is this inspection. I have been to an industry where they were inspecting the currency printing. Our Indian currency being printed, there are only specific places where they print our currency. And we all know each currency, you have lot many checks. Like before it comes to the Reserve Bank, they do a stringent inspection process, and at each and every stage of the printing process. Let us say this is the printing machine which is running at a high speed, and the currency is basically, it is printed like a sheet of paper where you will have an array of currencies. So first stage, while printing, it will be checked for certain things. Say there is no sludging of ink, and the numbers are printed correctly. There is a clarity, the color matches, and it is printed straightly. So everything like that will be checked. After that, it will be cut. After cutting it, again it will undergo certain inspection process, and then they will be sorted based on the color or some other. There are many things, like 200 and odd things to be checked on each currency, so that all the checking will be done in 10 to 20 milliseconds on the go. Like this, it will be on the go in the machine, but we are able to process this with the help of the inspection using a machine vision system like this. So what is the speed of processing is really enormous, which a human will never achieve, will not be able to be so precise and so fast at the same time, which a computer easily does. All these machine processes comes easily for a machine, like a interpreting device. But for a human, these are all very tough tasks. But when it comes to facial recognition, object detection, and those areas, we are all very comfortable. If we see a person today, after 10 years, if we see him again, we'll be able to identify him. Just one thought. But for a machine, to identify the same person in a different angle, it is a difficult task. So there lies the major difference. So this is about the machine vision industry. Has been almost 1 hour. Any doubts you want me to stop, or you want to discuss more on any of these topics? We have come to the end of machine vision. We'll enter into robot vision. No doubts? Can we proceed? Okay, so what is computer vision is basically we are trying to process the images, the photographs or videos, and we are trying to get some information out of it. That is what we want to get from a image. That is what we want to see. That is the vision of the computer. So what does it apply when how does it apply to a robot? That is a robot vision. So we know the definition of robot would have been given by someone, and we know where we employ these robots. That is the 5Ds of the robot, where we employ the robots in dirty, dull, dangerous, domestic, and dexterous environments. Where a human being hesitates to work, robots are being employed. So why not the robot again be given a vision? If a robot does not have a vision, no problem for certain applications. Let us take the example of a pick and place robot articulated arm like this. So how do they train this arm? In a normal setup without vision, we will have something called a teaching pendant, where we take the arm to certain coordinates. We teach the coordinates to this arm repeatedly, so that it will do that again and again. And when we leave it free again, it does the same thing. So this is how we teach the robot, which does not have a vision. But if we have a vision enabled robot, how does it do? Just by looking at the object, it will be able to go near the object, pick the object, place the object at a particular position. So the picking coordinate and placing coordinate is decided by the arm if it is enabled with vision, where a human interference is not at all required. So this makes robot more independent. So this basic articulated arm is like a blind person, where you have to take his hand or her hand and take them to a particular place. But if a robot is enabled with vision, it is able to navigate to a place, do things on its own. But how? Based on the vision it has, or based on the images or the video it is able to generate from its camera. So who is playing a major role here is your vision. I'm not discussing about the types of robots, would have been discussed earlier. And why do we need vision? So these are some of the areas where we need vision: to sense certain objects, to perceive, to move, that is to map and self-localize. That is the robot should know where it is by looking at the surrounding or creating a map of its environment. And it can plan a path, avoid the obstacles, navigate from one position to the other by planning its path in its own environment. So first thing is, it is able to know where it stands, and it also knows where its target position is, and it is able to plan a path. everything is done with the help of the vision. To grab objects and to interpret the scene surrounding and surveying, like if the robot has to come to a conclusion based on its scene, what scene it is able to see, that is the video input given to it or the image input given to it, the robot will come to a conclusion. Say we are asking the robot to track a ball. So how does it know whether there is a ball in front of it or at the back of it? By getting the information about the scenes in front of it, it will do a windowing technique where it will check frame by frame. It will rotate itself 360-degree and it will try to track the ball. That is one thing. Then, so where do we apply this? Again, it is image classification, object detection, object recognition. Semantic segmentation is nothing but we are trying to segment a part of a image, total image provided. We will take a part of it, we'll try to understand something, understand the meaning of it from this segmented portion. And then action recognition, this is again an application, like the latest application is like a gesture controlled arm and human pose estimation. Like we'll be able to come to a conclusion whether a person is sitting, standing, or squatting or crawling. So those pose estimations are possible. And also if you want to control some teleoperated robo based on your gestures, so your hand gestures will control the robot. That is again an application which is very recent. Then robotic sensors, we all know this is example is a self-driving car shown here. You have lot many sensors being employed in this unit. So these are some of them, out of which the range finding sensors and digital cameras, they contribute more for this vision part. So how does this range finding sensors are used? They are used for obstacle avoidance, scene interpretation, and mapping. And if we talk about the digital cameras, you have lot many types of cameras, which we'll discuss in next slide. So why are they used? They are used in the place of the lidars, which were widely used earlier days to create maps and get to know the surrounding. Nowadays, we are employing digital cameras everywhere in the place of 2D and 3D lidars, because this is a more cheaper option. So this is another sensing device, and we get color information also from this. So what are these types of these vision sensors? A color camera or a digital camera, it can be of any of these types. Like there may be camera with a different field of views. If we study about the cameras in depth, we will be able to know you have a camera with a different field of view. So you can have 180-degree cameras and 360-degree cameras, where polydioptric means you have a 360-degree view of it will be fixed in one position, but the camera will give you an output of 360 degrees from its position, and that will give a image in this form, like a fisheye. You'll get a picture. So from that, this is fed to an interpreting device, and then you will come to a conclusion. This is widely used in surveillance systems. And then you have thermal cameras, where you employ this to surveillance, fire control, and medical applications. And even the forest offices, those who are in need of night vision, they may use these thermal cameras to detect the presence of animals or foreign bodies, like any intruders. So there we can employ these thermal cameras. So you will get some image like this based on the heat generated from their body. And then range sensors, you have stereo vision cameras, structure light cameras, time of flight technique being used in 2D lidar, and 3D scanners, 3D lidars and scanners. So what is the what is the each and every one of this? Stereo vision is this one. Like you have, like our vision, we have two eyes. Our two eyes are in the same position. If you take this, they lie in the same plane, right? So you position two cameras at the same position, and take you try to take images from these two. This is the image from this, and this is the image from given by this. So if we take two images, what happens in your stereo vision is some portion may not be seen by the right eye, and some portion may not be seen by the left eye. So you try to what to say, you combine both, and you try to get a vision like what we see in our normal human eye. So um, that is stereo vision or a 3D vision. So triangulation method is followed, a deep mathematics into that. I'm not getting into that part. So based on this stereo vision, we are able to process more depth. We are able to get a depth image. So this is how we come to know about the depth of an object. Like any 2D image will not tell you what is the depth of the object. The third dimension is not known. That is nothing but the depth. But if we combine these two images and create the depth, we'll be able to get the depth of the image. So third dimension is made available. Structured light is again another technique to get a 3D image, where different cameras placed like this, and there is a lighting arrangement. This is the object. Okay, so light falls, projector will project the light on this object, and we are trying to get the reflections of the object from these two angles. This is camera 2, this is camera 1. The difference between these two will give the structure of the object, that is structured light. And this is what is used in Kinect cameras. And time of flight. So for this stereo vision, you have many manufacturers like Intel, Ensenso. You have RealSense camera. It may cost around 2 lakhs to 3 lakhs. And Kinect, again, Intel, RealSense, and Kinect are going out of the market, is what we come to know. Azure Kinect is available in the market. Instead of Kinect is used, this is a Kinect. It is used in Xbox. So this is used to sense the movement of a person in front of the Kinect box. So what is the arrangement here is the IR projector, IR camera, and a normal camera. So you have two cameras, and this projects light on this. So the person in front of this will reflect the light that is captured by these two cameras, and Kinect is able to come to a conclusion what is the structure. And this is a very wide angle camera. What is used in Kinect is a very wide angle camera. It has very wide field of view. And time of flight, it's nothing but lidar. So this is the time of flight. So let us say there is an object here, and your lidar is here. It just scans. So when that gets reflected here, the obstacle, it gets reflected here, it is able to find out there is an object here. So these are the laser scans. The laser scanning is done, and every point of reflection is taken. And based on the time of flight, we are able to see whether there is an object nearby or not. This is the working of a lidar. If it comes to 3D lidar, mostly used, widely used in Tesla or other self-driving cars, you have a laser scanning done 360 degrees, and you will be able to get a 3D projection of the objects around it. This is nothing but not a point cloud. They call it as a point cloud. Okay, the same laser scan outputs, but with depth analysis or depth information. That is the third dimension. We get a point cloud like this. This is the advantage of using 3D lidars. And today, in today's world, instead of going for this and this, we are preferring digital cameras. Why digital cameras? In the place of one lidar, we'll be able to fix some 8 cameras. We'll be able to fix some 8 cameras. That is again planned in some cars, autonomous cars which are being designed. Even in Tesla, they are trying to do this along with the LiDAR. Why such a change is these cameras are cheaper, one thing. Another thing is the output from these cameras, they give you more information than these LiDARs. You'll be able to get the color information, the texture of the object around it, and you can measure the distance of the object also like a LiDAR. And you'll be able to, if you are able to merge these outputs from these cameras, you'll be able to study more attributes, and more conclusions can be arrived based on the outputs of all these cameras combined together. So that advantage is not present in your 3D LiDAR. That is why nowadays we are planning to use more digital cameras. Even in KUV 700, you would have seen there are many cameras fixed around the car, and it will be displayed in the dashboard. So instead of your rear view mirror or a rear view sensor, we'll be able to see the whole rear view option with the help of these digital cameras present here. Even the side rear view mirrors and the back end, everything is shown clearly. So that is the advantage of your digital camera setup. So this is again the applications. This we all know already. Assembly line mainly for the pick and place robots. Here you can either employ a 2-dimensional camera or a 3D camera. So based on that, the components which are being picked and placed may differ, and some applications may require only 2-dimensional. That is, a conveyor may be there, a component may be moving. The robot manipulator has to go pick it and position it somewhere. That is simple application. Sometimes you may require, like, there may be a component which comes in different orientations. So the camera has to find out, or the robot has to find out what is the orientation of the object which is on the conveyor, and it has to rotate its arm or the finger or the gripper according to the orientation of the component on the conveyor, and then pick it out of the conveyor. So in that case, you need more processing than a normal pick and place. So this is again another advantage where you can employ 3D camera, or more than one 2D camera can be placed, and you take both the pictures and merge them and then get the output. That is an advantage in the assembly line, and this is mostly used in packaging industries, component processing industries, manufacturing industries, and printing industries. Those areas, assembly line computer vision techniques are used. Automated guided vehicles, self-driving cars, collaborative robots are nothing but where a human and a robot work together, or two robots work together. So if they want to avoid each other, or if they want to follow each other, say first one robot picks one object and hands it over to the next robot, so they have to collaborate it, right? So this second robot has to know that first robot has picked the component, and what is the orientation it has, its arm is in, and then get the component in the same orientation. Those things are possible with the help of vision techniques. Drones play a major role today. Autonomous drones are able to navigate, and they are able to send us more and more pictures from top view, aerial view. Photogrammetry is one such usage where you can do remote sensing. You can what to say, the area of measurement of the land area can be done, and underwater robots are also coming up today. Like you can do horticulture, aquaculture. All these things are possible with autonomous drones today. Spraying of pesticide, detecting the disease of a particular plant, and trying to spray pesticides on a high like a coconut tree which is at a different height. All these are possible with the help of autonomous drones, and which are vision enabled. Again, underwater drone is used for breeding of different underwater species, or in nuclear power plants. They are able to use drones. So many applications we can come out with. And humanoids, we all know, especially at the time of COVID, healthcare has come up enormously, like with a very variety of robots. Restaurant robots are also very famous today. Surveillance systems, we can use computer vision techniques to uh, detect a presence of an intruder, uh, to get the face identification of the intruder, and biometrics can be used to avoid the intruders. So those surveillance systems are employed with not lot many techniques. Again, you can see if a person, there is something called emotion detection. So this will alert us in case of surveillance system. If a person is approaching us with a angry emotion or with a wrong thought in his mind, we will be alerted based on the emotion detection. So these are some applications where your computer vision is used along with AI. So AI and vision system together gives rise to many applications. That is again an interesting area. We'll try to cover up. It is not possible to cover up in 2 hours. I'm just giving you overview. And embedded vision is nothing but the same robotic vision. But nowadays, embedded, earlier it was necessary to interface cameras outside, like to a controller which is used for the robo. You have to interface the camera to the controller. Nowadays, controllers are available with camera enabled, like Raspberry Pi or Pi camera is available. So we can easily program it and make use of it by deploying our algorithms. Some of the embedded vision, that is, some of the controllers come with camera and also deep learning or ML algorithms inbuilt. OAK D-Lite is one such in progress. It is already, the pilot version was released, and if we place orders, we'll get it around December or next year only. So this cost is also very less. This is from OpenCV. So these OAK D-Lite, I think it is around $75, around 7,000 rupees, 6,000 to 7,000 rupees. This comes with a lot many ML algorithms, a camera, a stereo vision camera with inbuilt algorithms. So what does it means is, what does it mean is, if you connect this to your controller or your robo, it will take the picture, it will process it based on its inbuilt algorithms, it will be able to give you ready-made output. So that you easy it is nowadays to make our robots vision enabled. And this is very cheaper also. So what is done in these in such of devices is, basically they are training the network, that is ML network or a convolutional neural network, by giving enough number of training images. Say we are trying to classify a dog and cat, we will extract the features of the dog and cat images. We will feed like thousands of cat images, thousands of dog images. What does this CNN do is, it will extract the image features. So how does it do? Like I said, you have an array of numbers. So based on that, those numbers, the training network is able to extract the features, like if this is a cat, these are the features. If it is a dog, these are the features. So it will store it in its memory, and we are trying to label it. Already we have labeled the images for the training images, and whatever new image we are feeding it for testing, this particular CNN will try to classify it based on our training given. So the same features will be applied to the new test image, and then based on that, it will come to a prediction whether it is a cat or a dog. So say, let us say if you have 100 images, you will train the network with 80 images and you will test it with 20 images. So your output will be, prediction will be, the classification will be successful. So this is the simple meaning, but what is done internally is extracting the features. So how to extract features? There are lot many techniques in your computer vision. That is a different topic for discussion. So this example given here is able to identify the face of the person. So if you have trained the network for by feeding a number of pictures of all these persons, let's say thousands of Buffy pictures is given, Joyce pictures is given. So every time any new picture with Buffy and Joyce is shown to the network, it is able to tell you this is so and so. The same is applied in your social networking platforms, where we are able to detect the faces, they are able to tag them and identify the faces also. So what are the tools basically used for computer vision? This is important. Mainly we use OpenCV. OpenCV is like a Bible, like you can learn a lot from this itself. And then you have packages. Many of the packages are compatible with OpenCV. So TensorFlow is one such package. Theano is one such package. These are used for deep learning also. YOLO, widely used for object detection. And GPU image, it's basically for processing with the graphical processing units. Like you have high computation, mostly used for DL, deep learning networks. You can use CUDA also for deep learning. This is by NVIDIA. So parallel programming concept is applied over here. The number of computations, the floating point operations done every second is very, very high in these GPU image and CUDA. Theano was earlier used. And these are some of the computer vision tools. So Keras is a open source neural network library written in Python, basically in Python. This can be used in OpenCV. This again, it is capable of running on TensorFlow. So, okay. So Keras is a higher end version of TensorFlow. So what is TensorFlow is basically mathematic library, machine learning library, written mainly for neural networks. And on this package is imbibed into the Keras package. So again, these two things are used for deep learning concepts. And again, PyTorch is another is an open source machine learning library. This is also written in Python. This is widely used in natural language processing. Natural language processing is like our computer vision. You are processing our voice commands. So the chatbots and Alexa, MI speaker, MI bot. So those things are coming in this category. So for those applications, we can use this PyTorch. And what are the challenges faced in robot vision? Why robot vision fails in most of the cases? It is mainly due to the lighting conditions where the robot is being operated, or deformation or articulation of a component or the object which is under study, or if the position and orientation which was trained for the robot is different from what it sees now, that may lead to difficulty in understanding for the robot. The background may be different, so we need to take care of the background also when we are training the particular robot for vision. Occlusion may be hidden. Some portion of the object may not be visible for the robot, may be hidden, so it gets occluded. The scale of the object may be different. Very small scales, very small objects may go invisible. Where we place the camera again plays a major role, especially in machine vision systems, along with the conveyor. And when we talk about the camera placement, mostly you can use two types of cameras in your machine vision systems, that is line scan camera and area scan camera. Line scan camera, what does it do is it will scan line by line. Say we are talking of, let us take the example of an inspection industry, and you feed an image of a conveyor part. Like you have an object here, and this is the image you have taken from the camera, which is kept at the top angle, and this camera will scan it line by line. And area scan camera, it will process the total picture at once. It will take the whole picture and processes it at once. That is the main difference. So the camera placement and how is it able to cover, what is the field of view, in which angle it is able to take the picture of the object, everything is again important. Moving objects may not be processed in the same way as we have trained for a normal object, stationary object. So we need to consider whether an object is in motion or is it stationary while we are writing our algorithm. So again, moving object processing is a different or a difficult task, in fact. These are the references. Main thing is opencv.org. It has enough material, enough tutorials, enough courses also. Paid courses are also available in opencv.org. And learnopencv.com, pyoimagesearch.com, all these things we have enough tutorials. And ros.org, why I have specified here, is widely used in navigation and path planning or SLAM, whatever we call. So if you want to make a autonomous mobile robo, all these cases, the widely used open source platform is ROS, Robot Operating System. Okay, so this is not, even though it is called as an operating system, it is actually a middleware. So we can write OpenCV codes and you can use it in ROS also. So this can be installed within ROS. And I have given the installation of OpenCV and Python here, which is what is used for computer vision techniques. If you want, I can explain this or we can skip this. I just want to know the feedback from the audience, whether to proceed with the installation and show you the demo part, or just the demo part will do. In installation you will take care. Can I get some reply, please?
Good evening, ma'am.
Okay. So, yes, sir. Good evening,
Ma'am,
sir.
I'm Jaykumar from Associate Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
As part of mechanical student, how they have to get the all the whether it is
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Yes, ma'am. Now it's audible, ma'am.
It's audible, sir. I hear a lot of noise.
Yes, ma'am. Now it's clear, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, as a mechanical engineering students, how they have to get regarding the
As mechanical engineering students, how they have to get
all the information, ma'am, regarding the electronics related something is there. Any specific software is there, ma'am? Learning software.
Yes, sir. Learning software is OpenCV.
Open source. Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's free
Learning
source. Free source, ma'am.
Free source, open source, sir. It is open
Okay.
source.
Okay.
It is freely downloadable, and that is what the installation I have given in this slide. I will share all the slides with the resource persons, with the committee, so that they can share it with you all. You just need to visit to this website, whatever is given here, python.org, and download the Python one, first step of installation. And second step is to install the PyCharm. That is nothing but the IDE, that is Integrated Development Environment, where we write our code using the Python interpreter. Even a layman can start working on these OpenCV. They can just use the already available library packages. They can get the work done easily. Most of the robots functionalities are already built, and it is freely available in GitHub.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It's a new for
yes, sir.
It's a new for us, but you have explained a lot of things. Thank you so much.
I will give you this installation process, sir. You can follow, and you can ask your students to follow. And
Yes, ma'am.
it is easy only. And if they want, they can refer to YouTube. I'll share the link maybe. There is something called Learn OpenCV in 3 hours. This is what most of the students go through. 1 second. I have given the YouTube link here, sir. This is by someone called Murtaza. Murtaza's workshop. If you search for, you will get many YouTube videos from him. He will explain only the application. He will not explain the coding part of it. It is up to the student to understand, or we can explain them. But interesting projects are there to kindle their interest. So this is a one starting point for the students. It may
Okay,
not
ma'am.
be
Thank you.
useful for us, but for doing projects, this is more than enough. Say they want to do a line following robo, or a ultrasonic obstacle avoidance robo, or a gesture controlled arm robot arm. All these things are given here, sir. Enough number of projects are available. And the code is also available in GitHub.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So this is about the installation of the packages. Like you have to install Python, then you have to install the IDE, and then reboot and launch the PyCharm. Here you will be able to see the OpenCV installed. Like the Python installed. Whatever the version of Python installed, you can just see that Python 3.7 is installed in my example. And here you will specify a location, and this OpenCV Python is your project name. You can change this if you want, and then proceed with the creation of your project. And then you may need to install some packages, like inside PyCharm, you have already used the interpreter Python. In that, you have to install this OpenCV Python package to write our code and to get our functionalities. Say you want to read an input image and process the input image, or you want to show the output of the image, or you want to read the stream from your live stream from your video camera. Everything can be done by using this OpenCV, Open Computer Vision Python package, meaning the coding is done by us in Python, and OpenCV is built in C++. Earlier it was C language, and then C++ came into picture, and then they upgraded it to C++. All the packages inside library inside OpenCV will be like C++. The code we write will be Python. So this is the first package to be installed, and you have to install more packages like NumPy, SciPy, IMutils, TensorFlow, Keras, Pandas. Everything is available within PyCharm. So how to install is by these two slides I have given here. You go to File and click the Settings, and then in the settings you will have something called Project Interpreter. If you open it, you will be able to see a plus symbol. There, if you search, you will get all the names. So if you want to install NumPy, just search for NumPy and then give install package. That will install the package within PyCharm. So within PyCharm, you will be able to use all these packages. So you can do the coding in Python and proceed with. Let me show you a demonstration. This is one set of installation I have shown. And if you want to practice deep learning library or machine learning parts, you can install Anaconda from this web link, and you can install these libraries. TensorFlow and DLib are the libraries for machine learning and deep learning algorithms. It comes with these library packages, and TensorFlow can be installed from this. So this has enough instructions to install the packages. You can just refer to these two websites. You will be able to install. Just keep in mind that you need all these things to work on computer vision. So the eyes see what the brain knows. So what is the brain? Here is the interpreting device. Whatever camera is capturing, it is the interpreting device knows only what is being trained for this brain. So how to train that is by what we write as algorithms or the functions. So let me present my screen of PyCharm so that you will get a feel of it. Hope you are able to see my screen. And then it's not zooming in. Okay, let me not get into that part. Okay, fine. So this is the project name. OpenCV project is my project name. And I have installed the Python and PyCharm. Within PyCharm, I go to File, I go to Settings, and I see the project Python interpreter here. So inside the Python interpreter, you can see a plus symbol here. If you click this plus symbol, say if you want to install a NumPy package, to search for it, you will get it here, and then you give install package here. So that will install the package. This simple it is. So whatever package you want to install TensorFlow, you just search for TensorFlow and install it here. So whatever package you want to install, you can do it here. And for those who are new to this, like the mechanical engineering students, even they can just take the code from somewhere, paste it here, run it, and get it done. And interfacing Arduino boards with OpenCV is also easily done. You can refer to Google. It has many projects. So if you are doing a project or a you are building a robo using your any microcontroller, you can write OpenCV codes. Say you are using Raspberry Pi board, Jetson Nano board, whatever board you are using, you can just write the code here and convert it into hex files, and then put it in your devices, or you can use the bash RC file to be running independently on the microcontroller, so that the robo will not be controlled by your PC. Instead, it will be running independently on the floor. You need not have a PC to run your robo. The embedded system will take care of it. So everywhere you have this OpenCV and ROS coming into picture. If it is an autonomous mobile robo, ROS is widely used. ROS 2 has come into picture. It's released. It is not much used in India, but still ROS is widely used. Even in industrial environments, ROS is preferred. That can be a different session. I think for today, this is enough. So what I have written here is import CV2. Import CV2 is nothing but I am importing the OpenCV package. So if it is imported properly, I will get the next. I have given a print statement, package imported, so that I come to know that it is installed successfully. Then I have given a command called cv2.imread, and I have given a path. So in this path, I have stored a picture of picture. I am trying to read that. So that is done by this function. So imread is the function which is available in OpenCV package to read the image which is present in this directory. imshow is the function which is used to show the already read image which is stored in this variable img. So I am just displaying that image. And cv2.wait key, if I don't give, say if I am commenting that and running this code, to run the code, I click here, right click here, and I just click on run, or Control Shift F10 can be used. So if I run it, you see there is something flickered and then it went off. So it will not stay. So I have to make it make the window which shows the image on for some time. So I'm giving cv2.wait key. What is this? 0 is infinite waiting. Unless you close it, it will be there open. So you say if you give 1000, it means 1000 milliseconds. That is 1 second. So whatever value you give here is basically millisecond value. If you want to, if you want the image to wait for 10 seconds, then you can give value accordingly. So if I run it now, I'm able to see the picture, right? So this is the image which is read by this command, and it is showing the image also. So after 10 seconds, it is gone. If I want to stay forever until I close it, I just give 0 and run it. It won't go after 10 seconds also unless I close it. This is how you read and show a image. Say if I want to read from my camera, or if I want to read a video file, what is the command used or the function used is video capture. You just get the video from this directory and then you read it frame by frame. I already told you, even though it is a video, it is processed frame by frame. So if you are able to get one frame, I am capturing it, and if it is successful, then I resize it and then I show that frame. This will happen infinitely until I press Q. So this command, if command, is to check if I am pressing Q, okay, or it is it will wait for 1 second, and also this, that is 0xFF is the mask, I can say. Okay, what is returned out of this wait key function is ORD function is a 64 or 32-bit value based on what is your computer made of, whether your computer is 32-bit computer or 64-bit computer. You will be getting some value. So if you press Q, you will get a 64-bit or 32-bit for that particular Q value. So that will be masked with this, and then again ANDed with this. So any of the if both the conditions are true, it will break. So that is the meaning. So if I run this, I'm able to read a video and show it. That video is very short, so it is it break. And if I want to have a live feed of the video, very simple. You just, instead of giving the file name, path name here, I am just giving a 0 here, meaning I am reading from my primary camera. If I have more than one camera, I'll be using 1, 2, and 3 here. Whatever is your camera ID, that has to be used. If you have an inbuilt camera in your laptop, a 0 will do. Or if you have connected only one camera with your computer, video capture of 0 will do. So if I run this now, it may take some time to switch on my camera and capture my live feed. So this is how you will capture your live feed into your OpenCV environment. And after capturing this live feed, you will be able to process it frame by frame. You can resize it, you can convert it into gray color, you can take one frame out of it and process it, you can track, you can find out whether an object is present in such a frame. So this is my live feed. So all these things can be done by capturing a live feed video like this. I will show you one example of this. Say the live sketch where I was talking about the canny edge detection, right? When I was taking the class, so canny edge detection was discussed and thresholding was discussed, right? So by performing these two functionalities on my live video feed, I am able to get an output which is like our pencil sketch. Okay, so let me run it and show you so that you understand more clear. So I have switched it on, so it will take some time to get the live feed. And once the live feed is obtained, you can see it is converting the color into gray, that is BGR to gray. I was talking about the RGB color 3 channels. In OpenCV, it is blue, green, red. The first channel value will refer to blue, second channel value will refer to green, and third channel for red. So if you are giving a color feed, it will be converted to gray by using this cv2.color to BGR to gray function. So it will convert it into gray color first, and then it blurs, that is Gaussian blur is applied. Gaussian blur filter is applied on the gray image obtained from this step, and then canny edge detection is performed on this blurred gray image, and then thresholding is performed on the edge detected image. So that is what is done in this. So you are capturing a live feed and you are doing some process. Okay. So while doing this process, you are calling this sketch of frame function. For each frame, you are calling this sketch function. Where is the sketch function? It is here. So for each frame, it is done. So frame by frame, it is processing. That is the meaning. So this is the output. Hope you are able to see. So if I want to get each of this is called a contour. If I have not discussed it, the edges are detected and it is able to draw some contours. Contours are nothing but curves. So based on connecting the edges, it is able to come to a conclusion whether it is a continuous contour or not. So if I wave my hand, you can see it is not very clear, right? So if I want to make it more clear, what I have to adjust is I have to adjust the values of this value 10, 70, whatever thresholding value I have given. So say if I give it like 100 to 155 and run it again and see, you'll find a difference. So these values can be just adjusted. So this easy OpenCV is, that is what I'm trying to convey. And these projects will be interesting for the students to kickstart, like to start their learning. And second, it takes some time to read. So this is the basics of OpenCV, and you can do photo restoration, you can do template matching to find an object. Say you give the object a template. Say you have a picture of a device, and you give the template of that, and you want to compare that with the input image you are giving. That will be done. So you can see the background is white has changed, and you are getting some more lines, right? So this is how you will be able to do the processing on videos and images. Any doubts? Any doubts? Is my screen visible? Okay, so instead in along with this, you can use Google Colab to run your codes. Instead of installing and doing everything, it is simple to use Google Colabs. If you are not aware of it, please go Google it. It is just like any other addition you do, like Google Classroom has been added, Google YouTube has been added to this, and you use attendance apps. So like that, you can add Google Colab also, and you store your codes in the drive, My Drive. So if you store your codes in the My Drive and you start writing a code, you can start a new notebook and you can start writing your code, Python code. But this here it will be stored as a Python notebook, and it's you can see its extension is IPYNB. Okay, Python notebook. So you are writing the code here. If you are say if you are writing import CV2, the same code can be written here also. Import CV2. What I gave is print package imported. The same code I can write here and run it by clicking this play symbol, and it will print the package imported. Same way you can run the code step by step. If you want to add comments, you can add text here. So instead of writing the code, you can example for Google Colab. If I want to just have it as a command, I can have it as a command. So this will not be run. You can't find a play symbol here. If I include one more code, I can add one more code and play it. Okay, you can either control enter or you click this play symbol. If you don't want it, you can delete it. This is how you create new notebook and write your own code. So in this way, you will be able to write more codes easier, and you have lot many codes available in Python notebook codes available in GitHub also, and you can download them and run it here. Okay, so while running, if you are storing your files in your drive, you have to mount your drive to the Google Colab code here. So that is done by using these two lines of code. Hope it is visible. from google.colab, import drive, drive.mount, content drive. So this is these are the two lines to mount your Google Drive to this code. Okay, so if I run this step by step, you can see the play symbol gets changed into number 1, meaning it is run first. Then when you are running this, it is still rotating. You got a link here. You click this link, you will get something like this. How many ever Google accounts you have, everything will be displayed. You can choose which one you want to use, and you can sign in and get an authorization code like this. You can copy this code, go back to the code, and you can paste it here and then give enter. So if you enter the authorization code successfully, this drive will get mounted. You will get a tick symbol here, and all these files will be accessible for the code you are writing. Okay. So what I have done here is I have read a image from this drive. I have read, in fact, I have read 2 images, and I am trying to show them. So here I have used another library called matplotlib. So I have used the plt.imshow command, and I am displaying the image, first image and second image. So 2 pictures are read, and I am doing face detection here using something called hair cascades. You can Google for it. It is simplest face detection algorithm, and you have XML files, built models already available. You can customize the hair cascade model also for any objects. Say you want to detect a stapler, a scissor in a picture. You can build your own XML model. So that can be done. So if I want to detect the faces, I am just applying the algorithm. It is not shown here because detect face is not defined. I have not run this maybe. I have to run it step by step. Now it is able to detect the face. Same thing can be applied to multiple faces also. Same hair cascade algorithm can be applied to multiple faces also. So this is face detection, the simplest one. So I have told you 2 types of running the Python OpenCV code, where you can use a PyCharm environment, or simply you can use a Google Colab environment. Both are possible. Any questions? So that is about OpenCV and computer vision for robots. The introduction part. If you want to dig deeper, please refer to the references I have given in the PPT. Also, you can refer to GitHub or Kaggle. Just type OpenCV code for any application. You will get enough of the codes available. You can run them in these environments. That's it. Thank you for the patient listening. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So I thank Dr. P.D. Radhika madam for giving the guest lecture in the topic of computer vision. I hope that the knowledge gained, what we have gained, this guest lecture will enhance our knowledge in computer vision. So thank you for accepting our invitation and delivering the guest lecture, madam. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you, sir.
So dear participants, thank you for attending day 2 session 3. So we will start the day 3 session 1 on tomorrow 9:30. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thanks for attending. So can we leave, sir? No questions, right?